But with no further ado, I think what I will do is I will introduce and I will let our wonderful panel of guests introduce themselves. I am really delighted to have three real experts that are right in the thick of it in terms of bringing their communities, be that staff, customers, industries, all sorts of things, on the journey with us on sustainability. So Jess, do you want to go first and tell us about what you are doing over at CDP and what your role is and that kind of thing?
Thank you, Sally. Yes, so hi, I'm Jess. I'm the Director of Marketing at CDP. For those that haven't heard of us, we're a global non-profit, really working to make sure that organisations can understand and act on their environmental impact. So we pioneered environmental disclosure 25 years ago when we started as an organisation, and have really grown and developed our work since. So yeah, that's us in a nutshell, and yeah, excited to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. And yes, for all of those that don't know about CDP, we will be putting links to them in the after notes, because from a disclosure point of view, it's something that all businesses could take a little bit of a better look at. And Andy, I'm going to call you Andy rather than Andrew, because otherwise I sound like your mum's telling you off. But Andy, do you want to tell us about you and what you're doing?
Yes, thanks, Sally. Hi, my name's Andy Richmond. I'm UK Communications Manager at Cemex. I've worked in communications-related role for around 18 years now. And at Cemex, we look after internal comms, external comms, stakeholder comms. And I think part of the journey we're on with regards to sustainability is we produce building materials, mainly cement and concrete, amongst other building materials. But these objects are the things that our world is made up of, whether that's roads, schools, hospitals, bridges, leisure facilities. We probably all use them in our lives, and we can't do without them now. So, but at the same time, our industry has a real sustainability challenge that we're trying to meet. And it's my job to tell that story.
Brilliant. And we are absolutely, exactly. If it were easy, it would be easy. But we were just chatting before as we joined the call. This is not an area of the world that is easy. So even harder to bring people on that story. And Manuela, your list of credentials from Stanford University to the papers that you've published, the decarbonisation projects you've been on, the list of credentials are long. So I will let you introduce yourself. I know you've done phenomenal work in sustainability.
Thank you, Sally. So as a background, I'm an international director. I'm really passionate by people and progress, I would say forever. And throughout my career, I had multiple impact roles as executive director and also non-executive directors. I've been working in the logistics industry for around 15 years. And in parallel, I've been working in the NGO sector for around 10 years. And as a board member, but also president at Oxfam, I'm focusing specifically on the expansion of the Confederation and on the development of the fair trade activities. So
Fantastic.
Quite a lot to be done in this field as well.
And I've even just heard you telling me that you are going to be working on some work in the AI field as well. So phenomenal work. And thank you all three of you for joining us today. And I'm not going to be that easy when I come to my questions. We've got an awful lot to get through, and I've got about 9 or 10 questions. So we will kick off straight away. I think because this is Green Monday, and obviously for everyone else, they're looking at a Blue Monday, but our antidote to that is to bring our positive energy and vibes to the day. I want to kick off on progress, because progress doesn't always make headline news. Nobody wants to talk about it, so we don't tend to see so much of it. So can we kick off by talking about what is the progress that you feel that you might have made in 2024 as within your areas, and just kind of what are you proud of in that area? And before I get the panel guests to answer that, anyone in the chat and on the call, please do light up the chat as well with the progress you're all making, because it's not just about the progress you're making, but when you hear other people's progress, this is what brings us that positive energy that we are making progress. So for my panel guests, does anyone want to offer to go first?
Happy to go.
Yeah, go for it, Manuela. Go for it.
As we speak about achievements, I think it's always nice, and also what's coming. So I'm super proud for Oxfam that we keep developing the Bite to Fight project. So Bite to Fight is the name of a chocolate brand, but it's also the name of a project that enables farmers to have a better living income. So it's not only about paying more, but it's really about creating an entire ecosystem that helps the farmer to be more resilient. And that's something that I'm super, super proud of. Also, we could manage to expand the confederation. So Oxfam has activities in around 80 countries and a revenue of around 1 billion. And the thing is that when people think about NGO, they say non-profit, but the reality is that you have a budget and you need to use it in a smart way. And I'm super happy that we could welcome new affiliates. It was really an effort to make it in the balance and welcome them. So that I'm super proud of. And if I may add, something that I'm really super happy in 2024 is that I could manage to keep going every week to the gym with my son. And I think that sustainability starts with ourselves and not doing compromise on things as important as health or family. So I'm super excited about 2024 and even more about 2025.
I love it. Thank you. And thank you for bringing that personal bit into it, because that is where it all starts as well. We as humans have to make our lives more sustainable. Well, Andy, Jess, do either of you want to follow that?
Jess, do you want to go, or shall I take this on?
No, jump in, Andy.
Okay. So I think the thing I'm most proud of for last year is the development of our EVP. And as part of that, that led to the refresh of the careers area of our website, which was a fantastic project because it was the precursor to a full website migration that we're looking to do later this year. But for me, and very much linked to sustainability, the careers area of our website allowed us to try and tell the entire story of our organization, but in a bite-sized chunk, with a very specific audience that we were targeting. And I think it's really important that, you know, that as we target people to join our organization, wherever they are in their career journey, whether it be an apprentice or someone looking for a career change or whatever angle they may be coming from, that we're able to tell the story of who we are, what we do, and the journey that we're on. And a huge part of that is around things like our sustainability agenda, our DE&I agenda. It's well known that these topics and these themes, people want to work for companies who care about people, who care about the planet. And I think it's really important that we were able to tell our story in that space. So I think working on that EVP, that employee value proposition, and then let that lead into the relaunch of the careers area of our website, hopefully allows us to attract the type of people who are going to come in and want to make a contribution in the spaces of sustainability and in the spaces of DE&I. And I think that as we grow those areas of the business and attract people who are attracted to a company that has these things in place, hopefully can only continue to grow how we then approach things like sustainability and DE&I.
And I love that, because first of all, for two reasons. One reason, I hate waste, and waste could be leaving a light on, leaving a tap on, but waste is also waste of communication and time. And if we don't have a decent EVP, then the wrong people come and try to work with us, and then they don't stay. or they don't bring you what you want in the organization, and they go again. And that's a waste of human effort, which is a waste, whether it's tap water or lights, etc. So I think that getting our EVPs right and encouraging and attracting the right people is one thing. But I think the other thing is, if you are on this amazing journey, which I know you are, of sustainability, then attracting the brightest talent in that area is going to massively scale up your impact and your progress. So great work. I'm very excited. And yeah, I can see that someone's now very keen to go and look at your website. In the chat, do please, anybody that's watching and listening, do put your achievements in the chat as well, because you should be celebrating them. So Jess, over to you.
Yeah, and some similarities actually with what Andy was saying. We just under a week ago now launched a new brand, and as part of that completely revamped our website. So we've moved over in the spirit of trying to be as clear in our communications as possible, and I'm sure that will come up as we talk over the next hour or so. Have massively streamlined our website down from thousands of pages to less than 100, and we'll be working pretty hard to make sure it doesn't balloon too quickly. And yet we've, after sort of hit the moment, this is our, as I think I said, 25th year. So really using that as a moment to relaunch our brand. So a lot of work going on in the background over the past year, but quite an exciting way to jump into 2025 with a kind of fresh new start and some energy around that. So yeah, from a marketing perspective, that's really really important. And I guess just very kind of practically as an organization, we saw at CDP the highest number of disclosures to date last year. So there's still growing appetite amongst companies to disclose, and amongst other organizations to make sure that the companies they work with are disclosing. So despite what for us was a kind of big year with lots of change, new platform, we're still seeing that appetite from audiences to disclose to CDP, which is really positive.
That is really positive. That really is. Yeah, I can see a thumbs up there, but that is really positive. And I'm delighted to hear that we're talking about things that are perhaps not so obvious in the sustainability world, as you talking about having loads of pages that were on your website that might not have been performing. And back to my sort of I hate waste comment, digitally, just because we don't see it, just because we don't see it like we see litter, or when we put something in the recycling bin and we physically see that we have got to, that we're throwing something away, digitally we are honestly wasting so much effort and carbon footprint. So if we can ditch some of those pages, or take a greener hosting approach, or any of those things to make our digital footprint reduced, that is another great thing. So I'm very delighted to hear all of those things that you've achieved. So I want to move on then for 2025. And maybe we'll take the same format and we'll go with Manuela first. But let's now think about, what is the one thing you are most excited to achieve and progress in 2025, Manuela? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry.
There you go. That's all right.
Actually, as you spoke about data, that's a good springboard, because for 2025, I'm joining an executive program on artificial intelligence in a big university, and with the intention to bring back the knowledge in the organizations I'm working for to be more resilient and more sustainable. I think we can really save a lot of time, a lot of money, save carbon, but of course, using all these data also comes at a cost. So it's really about having the balance, and before pushing any new practice in the process, I also want that we think about the ethics related to the use of this technology. So that's what I'm most excited in 2025, on top of keep going with the existing project that really make me smile.
Yeah, I hope you keep it up in the gym as well.
Yes.
I shall remember to ask you, but I think this is phenomenal that you're going into the space of AI and the carbon implications of that, because I think if we can move into everything with open eyes, then we can make more sensible decisions and choices and be more considerate. So, Andy, you're most excited about what for 2025?
Well, I'm going to continue on the website theme. I said we've relaunched the careers area of our website as a precursor to a full website migration, and that's not an approach I've taken before. I think a lot of the time companies launch into full scale migrations. I think it's been wonderful for us this year to take a segment of our website and do some testing, do some trialing, get it right, and then build out from there. And as I said, I think the careers area is a microcosm of your wider story. You're just trying to tell it in a very succinct way. So I think we've really got a good idea of the direction of travel with that. But I think as we now launch or migrate our entire website, and again, particularly linking it back to sustainability, I think we've got a really good sustainability story to tell based on a really good sustainability strategy that's been put in place for a number of years now. We've got 6 pillars around our sustainability that ensures we have a multi-layered approach that I think really gives us a real full spectrum of how we're looking at decarbonising our operations, enhancing biodiversity, and trying to promote a circular economy. So I think that with that in mind, we now need to be able to tell that story of how we're doing it. We haven't done that well in the past. I think we've created quite a confused story because of so many moving parts. But I think actually a lot of focus of organisations has been on net zero, reaching net zero, reducing carbon emissions, reducing CO2, and that side of things. I think we've got a fantastic story in how we're actually enhancing biodiversity. We've partnered with the RSPB, and we've just recently celebrated our 15-year anniversary of that partnership. So this is a long-standing partnership, and the reason we've been in partnership with the RSPB is because what we do, we're large landowners in across the UK, and as a result of that, we have a lot of land where we can actually make a real difference. But to do that, we have to work with partnership organisations who are experts in those fields that we're not. So we've got a real chance to tell some of those stories now and to thread them into this fantastic strategy with these 6 pillars. And I think website migration gives us a wonderful opportunity to sort of step back, take stock, start working out what that story is and how we tell it. And then from that, I think all manner of things can grow, such as how we take the elements of that story and sort of chunk them up for social media, and how we can look at the videos that we're producing for the new pages of our website, and again how we can chunk them up and click them up, and that's where I think our team can do what we really love as communications professionals, which is get creative and think of different ways that we can tell the story. And I think that's what really probably excites me, but also hopefully excites our team here to be able to tell that story, because that's what we are. We're storytellers.
Yeah, absolutely. I love a couple of things that you've just said there that I really want to pick up on. Number one, leading from your sort of last year's success to this year, it's sounding like you had your own organization because of the strategy on the journey, but you're now bringing new employees on that same journey. So that was a really great foundation last year, and now you're starting to bring customers and the outside world, partners, etc., on that same journey, and sort of through your social activity or whatever, you're gonna widen that storytelling, which sounds great. I love also that you said that you're landowners, you're big landowners, and so you've got this partnership that you mentioned, and that's exciting, isn't it? Because it's like, well, what is it that we have that we can do? Yes, we can all work towards net zero, but what is it that is our sort of strength that we can bring to the party? it's actually why we're doing Green Monday today, because we are communicators. So what is it we can do as a business that will help accelerate progress for everyone? Well, we can do things like today and share the message and promote the message of sustainability and bring people on board and inspire people. So we've all got something that we can use, and you've got land. And so you sound like you're doing great work with biodiversity, which is brilliant. So Jess, let's move on to you. What have you got in store for 2025?
Well, I think for us, so 2024 was a big year of change and a lot happening behind the scenes. And actually, the exciting thing, I mean, there are many exciting things, but one of the exciting things about 2025 is a little bit more stability, and that we will have the data to build on. So we've had a year of using a new CRM system. We've now got the data that we can use to improve what we're doing this year, to build our segmentation, to really make sure what we're doing has impact. We've obviously been working way in the background on getting our website to a much better place. Similarly with the brand, and obviously for now it's about actually having done those quite big, quite exciting things. How do we make sure we're learning and continuing to improve, and doing some of those sort of geeky things that I think we all enjoy doing in the background, to make sure that we're really building on that. And I think for us, there's so much opportunities. We've got this kind of breadth of learning that we've gathered over the past 12 months, and having a little bit more headspace to sort of go, okay, what do we do with this to make sure that what we're doing has real impact, is I think the next thing for us, and something that might be a little bit more incremental in terms of the way that it rolls out, but actually is the kind of next layer of making sure this works, and that we're testing that, you know, what we've done with the brand is as good as it can be, and we're, you know, tailoring and tweaking accordingly.
And you seem to have segued me straight onto my next question. So I'm going to kind of double up a little bit. But I think that my next question to all three of you, which is, how do we break down the sort of things that made us successful last year, so that we can make sure we keep on doing those things and leverage that for this year? And data, obviously, I know at CDP data is really important, but you know, data for any organization helps us know tangibly where we are being successful and where we're not. So it comes back to my waste issue, where I'm like, I hate waste, whether it's effort, time, money, budget, resources, or anything, because waste is no good for any of us. So what are some of the sort of key success factors you think, or things that you want to leverage at CDP to get progress?
So I think for us, we probably, and we talk about storytelling in terms of external audiences, but it's obviously as important internally as well. And for us, what our kind of focus as we go forward is, how do we tell the story internally around what we're doing from a marketing perspective, what impact that has on our wider theory of change. So how marketing and comms play a role in those kind of, you know, very important impact discussions and decisions that the organization is having. And I think the exciting thing about, you know, the sustainability and the things that we're talking about today, our comms is absolutely vital to the type of change that we're talking about. But there's more that that we can do, I think, to tell that story internally of what those touch points, what impact that has on the decisions that people make. And one of the things that we're looking at really closely at the moment is also, how do we join up that journey so that we're telling the story from a end-to-end customer perspective, not from a marketing perspective or a commercial perspective, or from a fundraising perspective, but actually how are we all working together to make sure that we've got that narrative that we can, you know, show and tell across the organization, and in the right way. And I guess, you know, my sense is that most organizations have that challenge of, we've got so much data now at our disposal. How do we choose the right bits of that are important, that tell the story, but are also, you know, genuinely things that we can learn from, rather than the vanity metrics that can otherwise be shared. So yeah, I think it's for us at the moment, it's very much, how do we take what we've gathered over the past year and turn that into something that is useful for us in terms of our work and constantly improving, but is also useful for us in terms of then continuing to get the buy-in across the organization to show why the work that we're doing matters and has an impact, and to really join those dots for people. So yeah, I think it's a really interesting conversation about how we keep doing that, when it sometimes also takes time and headspace when there's a million and one other things going on, and actually you can't just in the 5 minutes you've got between meetings do really meaningful analytics, and it's something we've got to make space for.
Yeah. So I'm hearing that for tips for all those listening, yes, storytelling, we absolutely need to leverage that, but go further if we can find that time and headspace, if we can slow down to speed up, then actually really look at your stories according to the audience. Is this fundraising? Is this employees? Is this customers? Who is it we're talking to? Can we get that story right for the right audience so that we get it clear, but also get it emotionally, winning hearts and minds? That's a tip I'm hearing there realistically. So if you can bring everybody on the journey in 2025, over to you, Andy.
Just try and make that link between stories and data, because I heard a wonderful expression. It's lived with me for quite a few years now. But that is, there are no numbers without stories, and there are no stories without numbers. And I think that's just a lovely link between the story and the data, isn't it? Because the data, pure numbers, and I think Jess just identified, we live in a world of big data, don't we? There is so much of it, you can get into that, paralysis by analysis state as I've heard it described. But actually it's about, insight and really focusing on the data that, can make a difference. But as part of that story, as part of those numbers and that data, you need to know the story behind it to really make those numbers impactful. And likewise, a story without numbers actually is, if you like, a piece of fiction, isn't it? If you like, and we need to make sure that story can be backed up by facts and real life examples.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thanks, Andy, because I think that's a great point. And while we're on Andy, then let's hear what you think is one of the things that brought you success last year, especially bringing this EVP together. Like, what is the thing that you're going to go, oh, I'm taking that into 2025 because that really helped us succeed and make progress last year?
Yeah, I think possibly the thing that gave us great success across the journey we've been on with our EVP and relaunching our careers website, and will stand us in good stead when we relaunch our UK website, is partnerships, and how we are partnering with other areas of the business and how we're collaborating with other teams. And I think it is all in, I think our success is going to be in that partnership approach. I think we're trying to tell the stories of other teams. We need to listen to what's important to them. We need to try and understand what's important to their audiences. I think, many of our different teams have different audiences. You take our HR team, if you like, who are, involved in our recruitment, and that, their audience for that is by and large potential future employees, which is where our careers website is aimed at. But actually the other audience for HR is very much an internal audience. If you take our planning and development team, they have an external audience that are largely based in our communities, and again very different to the audience of our corporate affairs team, who working with relevant local authorities and MPs. So, we have a really wide range of stakeholders. And I think it's important to sometimes identify that, particularly as a communications team where we work right across the organisation, it's not always our job to necessarily, have to have the depth of knowledge of all of that of ourselves. It's important that we work with the teams who are experts in that field, who have that depth of knowledge, and that we work collaboratively with them to then glean that information and help that, like I say, become part of the story.
Yeah, I love that you used one of my favorite words, which is collaboration, because, we are not going to get where we want to as a planet, as a community of humans on our own. We need to collaborate. And if I were to give any advice to anyone listening, I'd be saying collaborate within your industry. Competitors are not competitors. They're people to collaborate with as well as anything else, because we need to change fundamentally. Systems change, most industries industries, if not all. So find ways to collaborate with competitors. And a lot of people say, well, that's pretty difficult because we compete against each other. Well, trust me, in the agency world, we literally pitch against each other. We meet each other in foyers as one goes into pitch and the other one comes out. You can't get more competitive than agency world. And I run an alliance of B Corp agencies, and we collaborate. And the way you can start that is by collaborating on something that's less difficult, like not your business, but sustainability or D&I or something like that. So start collaborating, but also collaborate with partners, like you were saying, Andy, or with your staff or whoever. Let's understand everyone's perspectives, because that's how these stories will then come to life and how we will bring everyone on that journey. And Manuela, that's probably a great way to segue into you, because I know you're really good at collaboration. So yeah, what are some of the things that you want to take into 2025, Manuela, to bring success?
Actually, I'm smiling because what Jess said and Andy and you really resonate. And I'm not working for Cemex, CDP, or something big, even if I'm very happy to collaborate. What I will keep this year is really keep informing and engaging with the stakeholders. I think it's super important. So not only inform people, but really engage them in the solution development, which is still something different. I would say take responsibility. I often hear, like, with all these big things, climate change, economic transformation, we are too small. And what I say to my teams, to my kids, to me, is I think none of us is too small, and anything that we do has an impact. Even like buying a chocolate versus another one, that has an impact. And we don't need to be perfect and be better than anybody, but just be aware that we have a power and that we can use it every day, and that it's actually pretty cool, because if you accept to be part of the problem, it also means you are part of the solution, which is much more exciting, I would say. And then a third one, I would say money. Let me explain. I remember one of our executives used to say, if you want to keep cutting the ribbon, you need to keep cost. I won't say that we will keep cutting costs, but I think we need to focus on how we use the resource, even if it's an NGO or in the private sector, it's important. And it comes to not making any waste. And that I think is really important. So that these are the three key things that I will keep in 2025. Maybe just a comment on the data. Something that I could observe within different organizations I'm working with or on. In some case, people might be uncomfortable to take decisions. So we say, let's wait that we have more data. And some problems are complicated, so more data will help. But other problems are complex, and we need to accept living in a reality where we have to take decisions, and maybe we don't have all the answer. So I would just say to my colleagues, to my friends, pay attention that we don't procrastinate key decisions because we don't have the data, because we will never have all the data. And if it was the case, yes, strategy would be planning, which is not the case. So maybe that was my reflection on data.
I love it. I love it. So I use a phrase, and we use this a lot in B Corp, but we don't want perfection to get in the way of progress. And yes, we can all wait for more data, and absolutely, when that data presents itself and we can go digging, then that's great, because that's a way of seeing our progress. But let's not wait and, like you say, procrastinate for that perfect data if it's not going to be easy to get to. Let's start moving and making small changes now. You touched on something else, Manuela, which I love, which was responsibility, like taking responsibility and accountability for where we are and where we are in the problem area, but also going, I can make a difference. And it made me think of a conversation that we've had in the past, Manuela, about the butterfly effect. It seems like the perfect time for you to tell your story about the butterfly. Can I put you on the spot and get you to tell it?
Yes, with much pleasure. So I'm developing a concept with a group of partners, which is called Morpho. And Morpho is a butterfly, and a special butterfly that has the power to even fly when it's raining. And I think it's really super important. I'm always touched when I see great people, but that do not necessarily have the right context to shine. And I just want to have that in mind and share that with my team, with my stakeholders. We can shine. It's just like one thing at a time. And then we keep going. Probably, as you said, in some case, the willingness to be perfect, it's really killing everything. And instead of strategizing for 6 months about what we will do, just say, okay, I'm starting now. What do I do now? And then we keep progressing. So that's the idea with the butterfly effect. And since I'm doing that, I'm more and more smiling. So you might like trying. It's working.
And I think for me, it's the delicacy of one small butterfly, one tiny species. And if we lose that species, then there is a knock-on effect around the world. But also that one tiny species can make a massive difference around the world. So I think there's this concept in my head of that ripple effect, that we can do something today. It's costing none of us anything really to be here today and have this discussion, but it's having a ripple effect because everybody will go away with one takeaway or one thing that they feel inspired to do, and that will make more progress in 2025. So I love that this concept of just start small, but start now. Don't let perfection get in the way of progress. Take accountability, bring your communities with you, and we will make more progress.
Maybe as part of that, so we did a white paper, and the question was, how can we make e-commerce more sustainable? We connected with multiple stakeholders, different profile. The first thing I heard was, wow, that's complicated. We are not going to make it. When I heard that, I thought, okay, that's the right topic. We're going to work on that one. And I'm happy to share the result with the participants, if you like.
Yeah. I also used a story when I was doing a speaker slot a while back, and I said, look, small changes are just big ones that haven't grown up yet. So sometimes you can do something very small today and it will grow and grow. And in fact, Green Monday today started very small last year when internally for my team of about 30, we decided to celebrate Green Monday. And we taught each other how to grow vegetables and how to use the circular economy, how to change our pensions so that they were green, how to change our beauty product choices, etc. So it was an internal day for our team to really set out on a more sustainable sort of journey for the year. And we enjoyed it so much that we shared some pictures on LinkedIn and social media, and everybody was so interested in it. And I said, well, that's mad. Why did I do it just for my team? Why didn't I do it for other people? So a small change can grow up and become bigger. But equally, Manuela, to your point, when you get something that nobody wants to do because it's too difficult and complex, that's the thing to start working on. That segues me beautifully into my next question, because of course life isn't all rosy. We've talked a bit about the built environment is not particularly environmentally friendly. It's not easy. I know, Manuela, you've worked in logistics a lot where we've got aviation. It's not easy. I'm sure CDP, Jess, you will have loads of organizations that are in really tricky industries where there's an awful lot of work to do. So what do we think are the biggest challenges that are holding us back? And sometimes we fall foul of thinking it's money, or it's just impossible. The solution is not there. But tell me, what are the real challenges that hold us back? What is the thing that's getting us stuck? Does anyone want to go first? I haven't picked a victim yet. Jess, can I pick on you to go first? What do you think is going to be the thing that makes it hard for you to speed up progress?
I mean, I think it's very, very different for different organizations and different audiences that we work with. And I guess one of the things, so for the first time in 2024, we launched a questionnaire specifically for SMEs, and obviously very different sort of set of challenges there from the other organizations that we work with. So, you know, the same doesn't apply to all, but I guess for those smaller organizations, it's a perhaps not money, but resource, a balance of priorities. It's a subject matter that in large organizations, you've got people who are absolute experts in this area and know sustainability inside out and back to front, and have got, the headspace to learn about it. Obviously, with smaller organizations, you've got people who are doing a million jobs already, and this is another thing, and it's a complicated thing, and it's a thing that, the science is still evolving and changing, and we're learning more as a society about what makes an impact, and it's hard to stay up to date with if you've only got a tiny amount of time. So I think, thinking very specifically about that audience, the kind of real challenge of how do we make this as easy as possible for those organizations to work with, to change, to understand what they're doing, to make the changes that will make a difference. And I think there's a business piece in that, and what we've tried to do as an organisation is really focus down on the data points that are, most important to those organisations and can really have the most impact for those organisations. But I also think it's a really interesting question and challenge for comms in terms of actually that audience. How do we keep challenging ourselves to be as straightforward, as simple as possible, to take away the jargon, to get to the point, to speak the language of the audiences. And then actually, I suspect we might find that language really works for our other audiences too, because we've got to the nub of the issue, and actually we've taken away the information that's not needed.
I love that, Jess, and I'm going to share a really great example of this, because being an SME myself, absolutely, I think I really resonate with this. It's not necessarily the budget that holds us back necessarily, because many of the changes we need to make to our businesses might not cost that much, but it's the conflicting priorities. The last few years, we've had pandemics, we've had economic difficult conditions. Sometimes it is enough just to keep the business surviving, and it's incredibly difficult to move it forward at the same time. But a really great example of this jargon-free and making it more accessible is that as a B Corp, one of the things we wanted to move forward was our own supply chain. We have a lot of organizations that help us make videos or print or all sorts of things. And we wanted our own supply chain to be greener and more sustainable. But we couldn't just go, hey, we want everyone to be B Corp or whatever. And so we cut our supply chain into sort of 3 parts, and those where we've got really big partnerships where we've worked with an organisation for a long time. We're quite a big fish in their small pond. That's quite a different challenge to when we could be a small fish in another organisation's big pond, where we might just want to change that supply. So we went and we had one organisation, and they weren't on the sustainability journey, if you like. They hadn't had the epiphany. They appeared to not be making progress, and we didn't want that relationship to fail. We have worked with them for many years. And so myself and Charlie, actually, who's on the call, who's our ESG manager, arranged to go and meet them at their site with their facility, go and have a look at what they're doing. And very much like you're saying, Jess, actually, it was the jargon that was holding them back. It was so daunting that they didn't know the progress that they were actually making. And when we brought it to life for them and we said, look, what about the vans that you're using to deliver? Could that go electric? What could this do? What could you do there? Have you got this waste? Could you alternately not use bubble wrap like this, but could you find a more sustainable option? And honestly, after 2 hours of swapping ideas and having a great conversation, we've made an enormous impact to our supply chain, to that business. They've had a knock-on effect to their supply chain. And you kind of go, oh, that was a successful thing. It wasn't money holding anyone back. It was just the ability to find the priority time and the jargon, etc. It feels really good to make that difference.
That's so positive. And I'm guessing you also came out of that thinking, not, oh, we desperately need to go back to the old jargon across the board, but actually, why don't we just speak like that?
Why don't we just explain? Yeah. And you know, we really broke it down into the areas of sustainability that they needed to look at, whether it's practices, you know, could we change our behavior a bit? Could we look at our utilities and our use of resources like water and stuff? Could we look at our logistics and how we use, you know, the fleets and our processes and the materials? And when we broke it into those things, they started to go, oh, this is making sense. And, you know, as a B Corp, I've certified nearly twice now. We're in recertification at the moment, but the certification process for B Corp is immensely complex with really difficult language. So anyone could be forgiven for going into what is called the B Impact assessment and just go, I'm out, I don't get it. So yeah, I think jargon and language is critical to this. So Andy, can I come to you next? And what is the thing that might slow you down, the sort of challenge that you might have that you think that's what gets in the way sometimes?
I think first of all, we all face different challenges, don't we? And one department's challenge, one organisation's challenge will greatly differ. I think at the minute, as we look at things, we will talk about the external headwinds, won't we? And we will talk about global current affairs, global politics. We will talk about the economy. The growth that we hope to see in the economy and how that will help businesses themselves grow. Particularly, in our world where we're supplying building materials, we're hoping the house building market picks up, which we've heard a lot of talk about, haven't we? And building new homes and building new infrastructure. And so I think that some of that is probably our biggest challenges, if you like, and what will hold us back as an organisation. But I also think that I think I'm almost trying to talk to myself here as much as the room when I say I think the next year for me is about trying to focus on and I heard it really well put the other day. I think it might have been Simon Sinek or someone like that who said, focus on doing the next right thing. And if I start to think about where the global economy and global politics are at, and you can dive down a really big rabbit hole with some of that stuff. And Manuel earlier mentioned, complexity, and before you know it, you're in a head spin, and you almost lose track of what the next right thing is. And sometimes I think it is keeping focus on what's in front of you. And I think that works on a really micro level, doesn't it? In terms of, as a business, what's important to us, but then as a team and as a department, what's important to us. And then as individuals, what's important to us. And, again, I'll use Manuel's example from earlier about going to the gym, which I commend. Sometimes doing the next right thing is just trying to get my toddler's shoes on as he's going out the door in the morning. Because if I don't do that next right thing, I won't get to work because we'll be having a meltdown on the front doorstep, won't we? So sometimes it is just about focusing on the next thing in front of you. And I think, like I say, I'm probably talking to myself as much as the room there. And I think that's probably the biggest challenge next year, in trying to bring it back to that space where we can have influence, if you like. And there's the old saying, isn't there? What you can't control, don't worry about. Focus on what you can control and what you can change.
Yeah, I'm going to pick up on a couple of things there, because I think that's brilliant. I love focus on the next right thing. And one of the events we've run earlier today has been about change process and how do we help change work? Because whatever way we look at this, we do have to do infrastructure systems, big change in most organizations and all organizations in order to to solve some of the problems that we have in the world. So we were looking at why is change not working and how can we make it work better? And one of the key things about that is to break change down into sort of more manageable chunks and understand what we're trying to achieve, which really speaks to that focus on the next right thing. But you also touched on the economy. And I think that this is something we should discuss when we're talking about challenges, because we have had a huge amount of economic instability, global geopolitical instability in the world, and this is distracting from some of the other stuff we need to do. Last week, I was recording a podcast for a company around commercial success and growth, and this is a real pet challenge of mine, because growth, when we think about sustainability, needs to be redefined. And in fact, that's what we refer to it here at Something Big, is growth redefined, because growth has often meant more money, more stuff, more sales, more everything, more. And we know as a world and a planet that more has not helped us at all. And we have this kind of unhelpful phrase coming up within sustainability around degrowth, which most people think of when they're in a large organization or they're thinking about stakeholder and shareholder value. They don't want degrowth, because degrowth sounds like austerity. It sounds like less sales. It sounds like less success. It sounds like less. So I think we really have to redefine. And I loved your comment a minute ago about Andy, about we want, in our organization, we want there to be more house building. Of course we do. But imagine if all of those houses were smaller or more sustainable, or they were better for the environment. You can have growth, but it doesn't have to always be more. It could be better. It could be, the podcast I recorded last week, I talked a lot about kindness doesn't come with a sacrifice of commercial. So we can have sustainability, but it doesn't have to sacrifice profit. It doesn't have to sacrifice commercial savviness. Organizations can still grow, but not always necessarily in a more environment. I think we need to redefine what that looks like. And that is a conversation we could be starting in an organization. What does growth in our organization really look like? Imagine if it was more profit, but with less sales. How would that look? Manuela, you've always worked in large organizations as well. So I'm going to put you on the spot, because you've really been in a place where people don't want you to sacrifice commercial, right? So what are the challenges? Yeah. So what are the challenges that you've seen? And how do you think what slows you down from progress?
I really like what you said about discussing what does it mean to grow and what do we want to bring, what's our mission as a company, really, honestly, not only what people would say to shine, but what do we really want to do. I would not necessarily use the word degrowth, because I think that would create panic everywhere. So from a marketing perspective, I would recommend not using that, but maybe have the discussion. What is preventing success or not helping, I would say, is the greenwashing. Because greenwashing is really a problem, because it's impacting the trust, and people are asked to do more efforts, maybe to pay more, and that's for sure. And then what's happening with the extra money, in some cases, it's a bit unclear. And I think it's super important to be transparent and to use the right word. There are plenty of claims, and they do not mean the same. And also, I would say coordination. If we think about food, you need to have coordination with farmers, with manufacturers, with dealers. If you think about logistics, so a simple example from the day-to-day, you can have a clean vehicle, but if you don't have clean energy available close enough, then you have a problem. If you need to do 200 kilometers extra for getting the energy, then it's not green anymore. So this coordination is super, super important. And these are the elements that I keep working on the maximum as I can. I'm not controlling the world, but I'm already trying to impact the circle around and creating butterfly effect. So hopefully it goes further.
I love what you've brought to the table just here as well, with trust and this concept of greenwashing. And it's beautiful segue into our next conversation, because we need to talk about, assuming, which we are, that we have on the call listening and on the panel, we have super strengths in communication. That's what we are. We are professional experts in this area. So if we think about harnessing our skills as communicators, who should we be talking to, and how do we bring this strength to the table? Who can we influence, and how what are we trying to say to them? So Jess, I don't know if I'm putting you on the spot now by coming back to you, but yeah, like, how do you want to leverage and scale your expertise in communications?
Well, I guess a big part of it for me is very much about my team and the work that they do and enabling them. And I think, bringing the right people into the organization, and people who are, passionate about what they do, very capable and creative comms and marketing professionals who also really care about what we're doing as an organization. And so I guess for me, it's partly about that, and making sure they've got the ability to thrive within their roles. So that's probably the most important thing for me in my role. But I guess in terms of kind of pure comms and our voice to the outside world, I think one of the biggest things for me is, how do we make very complex information simple without compromising the integrity of what we're saying? And that's something that we as an organization, obviously very much rooted in the science, some true experts in terms of the subject matter, who are much more capable of articulating this than I am, but that we live in a world where all of our attention is being fought after more and more aggressively. And I think we all know what it's like to have 30 seconds in a day to digest something that's lengthy and full of information. And so I guess for me, I think what part of the role that comms can and needs to play is kind of putting things through the really kind of not suggest, keeping the integrity of the information that we're communicating, but finding a way to make it digestible and manageable. And I guess to remember that we don't have to say everything to everyone all at the same time, but actually we need to get people through the door. We need to make them feel like this is a conversation they are welcome to be part of, and then go through the kind of the detail that sits behind that. And I guess that for me feels really, really important. And I do think some of this conversation can feel intimidating to some people. It can feel exclusive to some people, and it's our job, I think, to make sure we move beyond that, and we make it an open, accessible conversation, and take people on a journey with us.
I love that. And you really speak to my heart there. One of our mantras at Something Big is very much around the average reading age of the UK is 9. And that's not because people are not intelligent. It's not because they haven't been learning to read necessarily. It's because we have a very diverse population, and English is not the first language of everybody. But I think that when you start to look at an average reading age of 9, you are forced to improve the simplicity of your communication. And I think all too often we take that science and that jargon, and we want to look very clever, and we want to be very technical about how we communicate something, but it's just then not accessible to everyone. And we need this to be an inclusive conversation that we're having and putting it out there. And I think it was WeTransfer were one of the first companies, and also Innocent as a brand as well, were some of the first companies that I saw really breaking that sort of human language down. And it was like, hello, this is what's in this, carton of orange juice or whatever, or, when it was WeTransfer, and none of us knew at that point when it came out what WeTransfer does. And it was like, we make big files move from here to where you want them to be. And it was that real simplistic language that became inclusive. And of course, we are more successful when we can communicate better. So yeah, I'm really hearing you in terms of this, taking the science and reducing that intimidation of it, and that. So that's really great. Andy, what's your sort of super strength in communications that you can really bring to this conversation as well?
Well, I think I'm first going to lead on from the last point and segue into how a mantra that we're trying to apply is to be more human. And in a world where we're trying to use more and more AI to support us, I think it sometimes feels at odds with that. But again, to prevent people using jargon, to talk in a language that we have a conversation as we are today. I think sometimes when people transfer into a communications for work purpose, they turn into this very formal and jargon. And the example I always use to try and make it really easy to understand is, I see so many times in people's communications when they're talking about an event that this will commence at 3 p.m. And I don't know how many times I've ever said to my family or friends, we're going to go to a restaurant and dinner will commence at 7 p.m. Or, if I was talking to my friends, we're going to go to the pub and we will commence drinking at 8 p.m. It's just, you wouldn't speak like that. We're going to sit down for the meal, and we've got to be able to understand that we don't talk to each other like that. Yet when we move into business speak in a formal environment, we often then move into this place where we think saying that will commence at 3 p.m. sounds right. And just be more human. Say this will start at 3 p.m. And I think that's something we're really trying to encourage and influence. And help people with. And when you talk about kind of our superpowers as communications, I think that is our superpower. I think we can help people connect to an audience, and we can help identify the stories and what will connect people. And an example here, it comes back to that partnering and keeping your stakeholders informed and talking. And
oh, yeah, we just lost you for a second,
doesn't it? And by sorry, I was saying it comes back to the old mantra: we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, doesn't it? And we, by listening to people and people from right across our organisation, we will spot where the stories are, where they think it's business as usual. It's just what I do, and I'm like, that's amazing. I didn't even know we were doing that. We need to share that. We need to tell people about this. And then I think when you do try and tell their story, you can help them then turn it into something that connects with an audience. That I believe is our superpower as communicators.
Yeah, brilliant. I think I'm really hearing find the story. That's one of the things we can bring to this. We can go and find the story and find the angle. And when it comes to storytelling, I often break it into very easy language for people. Start, middle, and end. The start of a story is lay the context. Why are we talking about this today? The middle is make the point. What are you trying to say? Make the point. And the third bit, which we often forget, is what's the call to action? What do we want people to do as a result of this story? Because no one's got time to just read it for the sake of it. What do we want to actually do about it? And I think if we can help people structure, find those stories, find that magic, and bring that to life, then I think that's a great thing. The other mantra I often, you talk about commence. And I often say to people, okay, read your thing out loud. Do you sound like a robot? Do you sound like a technical expert, a subject matter expert, as in, do you sound too scientific? Or do you sound like you've just come from Eton College, which, if we're on a global audience today, I mean, do you sound a little bit too well-educated, possibly. It may be one polite way of saying it. But if you sound like one of our politicians, then that's probably not the right thing. And maybe Boris Johnson would have said commence, but we probably don't all say commence. I think Rees-Mogg probably would. So be more human is what I'm hearing from you as well, Andy. Manuela, what do you think you can bring in terms of your communication super strength? What is it that you bring to help get the story out there?
There is a quote from Albert Einstein that is really close to my heart. And actually he's saying, everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. And one of my super strengths as a communicator is to exchange with people and identify the other's talents, and also to structure the work to make sure that we are reaching the target, that we even go beyond, but also that each person has the possibility to shine and to really be at her or his best. And that for me is super strategic, and that's one of the way to use communication. I really trust that communication, that's not an activity that you do at the end when the project is finished. Actually, it's really the backbone, and it's supporting the entire value chain. And that's what I like the most, is to have the opportunity to connect with people and make sure that everybody is shining. And the reality is that when everybody is shining, you go up as well. You don't need to shine yourself, if I may say. You can just be next to the other and enjoy the moment. And that's something that I specifically love with my job and with my activities. Big heart.
I love the soundbite there, communication as a backbone. And I think that's something that we can all take away, and just remember the power that we leverage as communicators. That's great. And interestingly, Albert Einstein also had another quote, which is around, if you can't, I'm not going to quote it correctly, but if you can't explain something well enough, then you don't understand it well enough yourself. And I think that's one of the things that we can also remember, that we have to make sure that how well can we explain this, and if it's not simple enough, then we haven't understood it well enough ourselves. I'm going to do a little.
There's something. Oh, sorry, Sally. Something in there about if you can't explain it to a 5-year-old, which I think may or may not be attributed correctly to Einstein. But I do think that, you know, a 5-year-old will see straight through you if you don't know what you're talking about. And I think that, like applying that lens to yourself is, would I pass that test is really important.
I agree. And my children, who are no longer 5, but my goodness, did they give me a hard time when they were younger, that they would be like, why? And it would keep going. And Andy sounds like he's in the thick of that. But, you know, that's actually a great conversation to have in your head. Have I explained enough, or would a 5-year-old keep on asking why? I certainly remember a school run where my son asked me what air was. And I thought, how do I explain this? But yeah, I think that's a great one to also find our inner 5-year-old. I was going to do a bit of a quick fire round now, and see if we can get a little bit of inspiration around what a mantra might be for some of the people that are listening on the call. Like, so if we had a bit of a mantra for this year, and I'll give you an example of one of mine. One of the things I want to do this year, I want to be big, not busy. And what I mean by that is that it is really easy to get stuck into the minutiae of detail. And that's a great thing. We all need to do lots of stuff as well. But I want to make room for big. And I think, Jess, I've heard you a lot today talking about, like, how do we find that mental bandwidth? It'd be really great to hear what other kind of mantras you've got. And it could be a New Year's resolution, or it could be more of a thing to remember, that almost the post-it note we want to have on our screen to remember us, to remember every day. Does anyone want to start?
I'm happy to.
Okay.
Oh, please go ahead, Andy. Go ahead. I'm happy to listen to you.
Mine is probably very similar to yours, Sally. So it probably follows on quite nicely. But I think the phrase we keep using is we want less is more.
Yeah.
And we want to do fewer things
Mm.
better. And I think that links into your big piece. We want to do fewer things. And with that, we want to create the ability and the time and the mental capacity to try and take them to the next level.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, less is more, but fewer things and better. Yeah, love it. Manuela, you look like you had one ready.
Actually, what Andy said just resonate, and I think it's really funny because before the year start, I always select 3 priorities for the year just to make sure that I stick to that. And I was sharing that with a friend, and then he was trying to sneak in a 4th one just by putting "and." And I think it's difficult. Honestly, it's difficult to less is more. It's very correct, but it's challenging. So it resonates, and I value the advice that I will definitely write on a post-it and keep next to me for the coming weeks. I guess it will help. My mantra, I would say, I've started this morning. So let me explain. So that I did it for me. So maybe you can try. So if there is a project, something that you really want to have in 2025, so not 20 things, just one, you say, okay, I started this morning, when you discuss with people, when you discuss with yourself, and it really gives the instruction to your brain that you are in action mode, meaning that the next thing coming to mind is really how can I do it? What are the next steps? And I think it helps because it's important to have a strategy. And I will never say the contrary, but we can't strategize for 6 months. We need to start. So that's what I would share with you, and that's what I'm using. So I have started this morning.
I love it. It speaks of that I can't finish this if I don't start it. And I'm so opposite to my husband. It's really funny to listen to because I'm ADHD, so I start everything. Hence, I need to go big, not busy, because I will always be busy. But my husband will never start things. I will start everything, and he will sort of plan and plan and plan until we finally get somewhere. The combination of both of us, by the way, really helps, but it is we can't finish anything if we don't start it. So I love I started it this morning. I love that. So Jess, over to you.
I've been sort of thinking about the fact that whatever the challenge it is that we're facing, we're better equipped to handle it today than we were yesterday, and yesterday than the day before. We're all bringing in, especially when these are difficult challenges. We've learnt things. We know so much more than we did, just a day ago. We've experienced much more than we had just a day ago. So I think, like, as we kind of, particularly things where we've had to, we've tried in certain ways and it hasn't worked. I think important for kind of, resilience and growth and for positivity for us to remember, actually, we've got more skills at our disposal today, and that will keep happening. So
yeah, I love that.
I think that's something I need to I'll be reminding myself, and I think hopefully we can remind each other of as well.
I don't know if everyone else does this, but I sometimes like to write these things down, put them on a post-it note, keep them on my screen. Or the other thing I tend to do is take random future dates in my calendar and pose a question. So I might go into my calendar and find a random date in August and say, am I still going to the gym? And what will happen is it will just remind me at a random time, probably not when I really wanted to think about it, because that will be the day I didn't go to the gym or something like that. And I'll be like, oh, damn it. But, I think we've got to remind ourselves that these are the things that we're trying to achieve. And I think this all speaks to Andy's less is more. We are all trying, we're passionate people, we're trying to do a lot of things and we're trying to move. And so, just reminding ourselves of these mantras would be great. And I'm just going to encourage anyone in the chat as well that's listening, if you want to put your mantras into the chat, that would be really, really great. And moving on from mantras, and maybe I'm asking too much here because this is very similar, but if there is one little habit that we could change and we could encourage our audience to change, what would be a little habit? And I will give you a nugget of one that I've started to do in January, and it's phenomenally more powerful than I might have expected. So I am passionate that we have got too much communication going on. It is a very noisy world. We have a lot of channels. We have a huge amount of notifications and emails and messages coming at us from all angles. And each one of those is like having another tab open in our brains because it's taking up more mental space. So one of the little tiny habits that I decided I would use this year, and we are whatever, the 20th of Jan, and it's going well so far, is that when I saw an email in my inbox, and this is ignoring anything that goes straight into junk or anything else, but when I saw an email come into my inbox that I don't read, and maybe it's a newsletter that once I signed up for, or I bought something and now they're emailing me or something like that, or some of it is just, it's a notification that another platform is notifying me, trying to get my attention, all of these things. I decided that instead of just delete, I would actually unsubscribe. And some of that involves emailing back saying, really sorry, but this is no longer relevant. Could we come off my data list or whatever? Sometimes it's changing notifications, etc. But for 20 days now, I have been overtly, probably 10 a day, unsubscribing. And I'm starting to see a difference in my inbox. But now all of those emails were a waste. They were a waste of carbon. They were a waste of effort. Someone on the other end of those things thinks that maybe that I'm a prospect when I'm not. So, reducing their data list will be a good thing for them too. So that's a really good habit that I'm going to try and keep up, and I'm going to try and reduce the noise of communications that I've got. So over to you guys. Any decent habits that you can think of? Andy,
I'll dive in if to fill the silence. So I'm going to start with a habit I started doing last year.
Yeah.
And I'm going to carry it on this year. And I suppose it's very similar to how people will leave a journal or a diary, don't they? And I've heard it said we should write in journal or diary reason why we're grateful, to try and apply gratitude, and sort of write in one thing you've done today that you're pleased with. Do you know what I mean? To give yourself that reminder that you might have had a difficult day, you might be having a tough week, a tough month. It might be a really busy period. You might feel like you're sort of wading through treacle. Just remind yourself of one thing you have done, because it's amazing how that can flick a switch in your mindset. And instead of doing it via a diary or a journal, I actually learnt off a consultant. He said what he used to do, he used to try and create one slide for every working day of his life. And I will admit it doesn't happen every day, but I try and a day where I feel like I've achieved 2 or 3 things, I try and create that in a slide format. So I'm almost building like a playbook, a strategy book over time. And some of these things are just thoughts in my head. They never make it past a thought in my head, but I've recorded it. It's on a slide. And I've got this slide deck from last year that has all my ideas. Some of them will never come to fruition, but they're noted down there. The fact they're noted down there gives me that confidence that if ever I need to revert to them or need some innovation or an idea, I've got them. They're there. Some of the things were slides around success, what we've done today. Some of them were some graphs showing data where it's like, yes, we've achieved. Great. Drop these onto a slide done. That's today. So I've always taken that kind of journal notes into that space of try and create a slide a day. And I think if you did a slide a week, you potentially you'd end up with 50 slides at the end of the year. It's kind of like the playbook of your year.
Love it. I absolutely love that, Andy. And we have, as humans, we have a negative bias, right? So we have to work on the neural pathways that are to success, that take us to the positive side, because that is, our brains are already wired for negative. What didn't I achieve? So to create a PowerPoint slide that you can pull up every time you're having a hard time and just go, here's all the positive stuff, I love it. I actually might steal that, Andy, and start doing that, because I'd love to see your presentation at the end of the year as well, and have half an hour of you presenting all this amazing stuff. Amazing.
Half of it looks like wonderful achievements, and half of it looks like mad scientist ideas. But you know, they're logged, and they can always be referred to if ever we need.
All the best people were seen as mad when at some point. Even Albert Einstein was seen as mad. Does anyone else want to share a habit?
I know that less is more, but I would like to share too.
Yeah, okay.
One thing, I'm doing that already for several years, so it's not specific to 2025, but I will keep going and I would love to share, is to reconnect with people. I think it's super important. So every month I will take the time to reconnect with people I know, I appreciate, but I may not see daily. Not with the intention to discuss a specific topic, but just for catching up. And I find that really, really inspiring. That's also how I got more appetite to deep dive on AI. And I think it's really great just to reconnect with people and not assume that no news, good news. I think it's important to look at people around us. And another one is to say thank you. So not a rapid, polite thank you, but a real one. And like today, I'm very grateful just that we have this day together. I know something big. I know that all the things that we are discussing are happening in the day-to-day with the team for several years. It's also great to be able to meet with all of you, and I'm specifically grateful. So it's not a polite thank you, but very specific. And that's something that I will be able to write on my weekly slide, as Andy suggested. I think it's a great idea. I will probably put it also in my agenda to make sure at a random date do I still do it, but I think it's a great idea. So that's what I...
Oh, brilliant.
Tip or advice, reconnect with people and say thank you.
I love say thank you. We could do that so much more often, couldn't we? And Jess, have you got a habit?
Yeah, I think something that I try really consciously to do is to read or listen to something that's completely outside of my normal subject matter or a different viewpoint or perspective than one that I might hear in my day-to-day life. And that I just find just sparks so many different thoughts, and it's so refreshing as well. I think particularly again when we're in this world where there is so much information and you could quite happily 24/7 just be reading notifications and never get to the bottom of them. I think just growing in a completely different area just for the sake of it, just with no like intention or end product in mind, just a change is as good as a rest, as they say, and I really do think it has that impact. So yeah, I guess in the spirit of managing all the noise, I find that really productive.
I absolutely 100% believe that as well. And I think it brings that creativity. So in our team where creativity is so important, and yet we are sort of essentially sat at desks with laptops and whatever, it can be really hard to find that creativity. A walk in nature helps, but a day trip up to the local city, which for us is London, to go and just look around and look at different things. Next weekend I am going to be doing something for the first time, which is trying pottery with a pottery wheel. It engages a very different part of our brain. I actually learned how to do glass blowing just before Christmas and have a piece of glass that I have created, but I didn't even know how that process worked. So I think that just being able to engage a different part of your brain and do something different is really, really fantastic. So we are down to our last couple of minutes. So we've lost Andy for a minute, and we may not get him back. So we will thank him in his absence. But what I was going to end on, and apart from to say thank you, is very, very quickly, if there is anybody that we should be engaging more with, be that C-suite, that could be our industry partners, it could be, our teams. Who is it we need to be talking to, and about what? So in a real sort of snapshot, if you could advise the audience to be talking to anybody and about what, who would you advise? Jess, can I go with you first?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I think C-suite for us, very key as an audience. And I guess what we are definitely seeing is that these, it might have been in the past that you could talk about sustainability to sort of one particular part of an organization, but actually it's so important across so many areas that it has to be, C-suite, and it might be the finance director, it might be someone, different than we've spoken in the past who it's important to engage with. And I guess that the other thing that kind of, really springs to mind is there are multiple possible routes into this conversation, and there are multiple benefits that are actually resonate with a whole range of different audiences. They might be about risk, they might be about finance, they might be about a whole host of different things. And I think we have to find those routes in, and we have to speak to those audiences where they are, rather than where we are sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So advice is talk to the C-suite more and find the right route in to talk to them about the right benefits. Brilliant. Nice one. And Manuela, I should imagine yours will be quite similar, but maybe you can bring a different flavor to it.
I fully agree with Jess. I think that's super important. I would add, discuss with the people doing the job in the day-to-day, because they know the answers. And I think it's super important not to have a top-down communication, but really both-way communication, and learn from the people doing the job. It can be in the warehouse, in the field. So I think it's super important. I would advise actually to start there and to really go with a humble mindset. And then, of course, keep following up with the C-suite, with all the stakeholders. But I would start with the people doing the job, if I may say it this way.
Love it. Love it. Brilliant. So go talk to the people who are doing the job, and they have the answers for us. Andy, welcome back. We are just on our final question, and the question is, who do we advise our audience to go talk to more this year, and about what?
Yeah, and I know it's perhaps not the answer with the less is more approach, but I don't think there is any one answer to that question. I would say your best place to know who to speak to in your organisation, but I think that the more conversations you can have, the more conversations you can be a part of, and by that I think as well, work out how you're going to do that as a team, because I think that you can. I don't want to use the phrase divide and conquer, but I just did.
Yeah.
But it is about how you can look after different areas of the business and different stakeholders with that team capacity that you have, and then all bring what you've learned back to the table. I think for me, that's there isn't any one answer to who we should or shouldn't be speaking to. I think as communicators, I've always said, our role is to have a really broad knowledge of the business. Some teams' roles is to have perhaps a very deep but perhaps narrow view of an organisation and be really experts in their area. It's our view as communicators to have a broad knowledge of everything that is going on in the organisation, and to do that is a real challenge. And in many respects, it's probably why we end up with mantras like "do less is more," and try and be big, rather than because we often are stretched. But I think one of the ways to combat that is also to look at the resource we have as a team, and to work out how we can divide up our stakeholders equally and evenly, and depending on where a stakeholder might have a particular interest in a piece of work you're doing, and try and look after your stakeholders as a team game.
And thank you for that. I'm going to say that that's about equipping our teams as well to have a great conversation so that we're all on the same page and sharing the same information. And on that note, I knew we would fill the time completely, but I want to thank all three of you. And if the audience can give you some hands up, hearts, thumbs up, etc., because it's very difficult to give you a full round of applause, but it is really great to have you all three with us today. And I think we've had a really great conversation. There's lots of takeaways from today about being human, about who to talk to, about what the challenges are, etc., and what our mantras are. We will write up all of these wonderful nuggets and share those with everyone that signed up today, and with obviously yourselves, because that is just been a phenomenal conversation. So thank you so much for joining today as guests and also as all of our audience. I'm aware that time is up and we are over time by 2 minutes, so I won't delay us any longer. Thank you so much for joining me, and have a great Green Monday and a great 2025.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks.